Hi everyone, how are you doing? I hope that you're doing really well. I was sitting here wondering what I could make a video on. I needed some inspiration, and lo and behold, one of my favorite YouTubers came on and did a ghost story segment. And I was like, oh my god, inspiration just freaking hit me like a brick to the head. So I too wanted to share some of my own paranormal experiences with you. And I don't know if that is just my camera, but I feel like I'm already seeing kind of like activity in the back. There's always activity around me. I always have spirits. When I'm doing anything spiritual, I hear that little click, click, click up in the ceiling. I don't know about any of my other spiritual friends, when you're doing like tarot readings or you know, scrying, automatic writing, anything like that. I don't know if you hear clicking up in your ceiling or knocking on your walls or anything, but that kind of stuff absolutely happens for me all the time. So I know there's spirits around me all of the time. Even when I was a kid. Okay, so here are some of my paranormal experiences. Oh, hold on, I'm gonna get you up higher. Goodness gracious. You know what? I'm just gonna hold it. I am so sorry. I'm just going to go ahead and hold this while I do it, so it's going to move around a little bit. Okay, so when I was a kid, I grew up in a house that my great grandfather built in Sylvania, Ohio. It was me, my sister Ashley, my mom, my granny, and, various pets over time. So we used to always be terrified and always see kind of like this shadowy figure of, it reminded us of a wolf. And it was really terrifying. And it was always kind of like, right here would be the front door, then it'd be our living room. We had one room right here, then another room there, then the kitchen. And then we had like a longer hallway that led to another bedroom. And then if you turn to the right, it was the bathroom and the laundry room over there. So that hallway right there, we always saw kind of like that figure of what reminded us of a wolf. And it was scary, it didn't really do anything to us, but the information that I have now, I kind of feel like it was a spirit animal. If I'm being 100% honest, it had to have been a spirit animal and more in a protective kind of stance rather than intimidating. And no, we didn't have anything around that would make the shape of it or anything like that, in case you're wondering, like, you were kids, maybe you had something that was casting a shadow. No, it was nothing like that. And then every once in a while, you hear stories of when people pass away, when they come to visit you, you can smell certain smells that you can relate to that person. Well, one of our family members, when my mom was a kid, had died in that back bedroom that was connected to that same freaking hallway, man. My granny stayed in that room until she moved out, and then my mom stayed in that room. But you would smell kind of like lilacs every once in a while. And of course, since my mom was a kid, I didn't get to know her, but I was told that this smell was associated with her, and every once in a while we would smell that. So that was a paranormal experience as well. And even growing up, we would use like the Ouija board and stuff a lot in the house. My mom was fascinated with using it. She would have us kids use it. And when friends came over, we would all use it together and, try to do seance and stuff and seances. And of course, those kinds of things invite many different energies into the household. And I think inviting some of those energies led to some of the experiences that we had. And I didn't really think about that as much until I got older. The consequences of the types of energies that we had invited in just by messing around on that board, and the dark energies that could come with it, and the chaos that it could absolutely cause. And there was quite a bit of chaos that happened in the household. I'm not going to dive into it in this video, but yeah, that was some deep shit, to be honest. A lot of stuff happened in there, and I remember when I wasn't using the Ouija board and other people were, I would always sit there and I would rock back and forth, just like uncontrollably rock back and forth. And it's so funny now that I am older and when I go into meditation and I'm talking to my guides and stuff, I will do that same kind of rocking. So that was also kind of like a confirmation when I look back and, I brought up in other videos little breadcrumbs that you see from your childhood leading up to your awakening, to the gifts that you would have. To me, that's kind of like one of my little breadcrumbs right there. Like, oh, maybe somebody was trying to communicate with you at that time. And this is why, you were rocking back and forth, just like I do uncontrollably now when I'm communicating with spirit. All right. Then also, let me think of some other ones, because there was a lot that happened there. When I was with my husband and we moved out of a townhouse and into this other house, the guy that was the owner of it, he wouldn't stay there for very long. He would come and it's like he was quick to come and go. But when we were first moving in, my husband and his friend had left me there all alone. And mind you, I have always, ever since being a child, have been able to feel the presence of spirits, good and evil. And when you are tuned into those kinds of energies, you can actually get a feel for whether it's a child or an adult or a woman or a man. They absolutely have a feel to them where you just know what it is. Okay? And staying there by myself, I was instantly uneasy. I knew that there was presences in that house. I mean, it was beautiful. It was an absolutely beautiful house. Out on the porch and out in the driveway, they had it like this green marbling effect, which was gorgeous. But when it rained and when it snowed and stuff, it was like super slick. But just sitting in by myself, I just knew instantly uneasy. And they had this basement, and down in the basement, they had this little closed off room. It was just a room all by itself with this door. And then they had like first when you came down, it's almost like they would hold animals or something down there, like a half like door animal area. But that room in particular, it's just like I would look there and being over by there, I just knew like some bad shit happened in there. Like you would think somebody got tortured and killed. Bad kind of shit happened in there. You could feel it. Just this heavy, ugly, nasty, terrifying kind of, I don't want to be anywhere near that fucking room energy. Excuse my language. But, we got everything moved in and we had 2 other roommates. So there was 3 rooms upstairs. Me and my husband, well, we weren't married at the time. We shared one room and it had this little like door. It was kind of like a storage room in there. Like it had this like really small door and then you'd have to reach your hand in and feel like for like the switch to turn it on. And I always found that scary. I don't think anything was in there, but I found that scary. But one night when I was just by myself again, my husband was off somewhere. He might have been off at work. And then my 2 roommates were off at work too. Okay, so it was my room across the way were the 2 other rooms. My 2 roommates shared the one room on the left, and on the right, my other roommate, she liked to hold her stuff in there, and if, her and her boyfriend would argue or something like that, she would go ahead and go off in that room. So most of the time it was unused. It was just kind of like storage for her stuff or when she wanted to be in there. So one night, I heard an alarm clock going off in that room, in the room that was storage. So I'm like, what the hell is an alarm going off in here? And I went in and I tried, turning on the light switch, and the light would not turn on. I don't think it was plugged in. So I'm fumbling around in the dark, trying to turn off this alarm clock. And remember, I already told you, when you are tuned into spirit, you can feel whether it's a man, a woman, or a child, whatever. I felt a tall man standing above me, just like staring at me as I was trying to turn this alarm clock off. And I was terrified the entire freaking time, just fumbling around, like, I'm just going to smash on this until I can turn it off, okay? And it's just like, I couldn't see him, but I could feel him. He had such a strong presence. And then later on, when my roommates got home, I said, hey, your alarm was going off in your room. I went in there trying to turn on the light and shut it off. And she looked at me and she said, I didn't set an alarm. Like, I am getting goosebumps remembering this. Like, that house was, although it was beautiful, there was a lot of energy in there that was no good and it was terrifying. So we didn't even stay there for an entire year before we moved out. There was quite a few reasons for that, but I was okay not staying there. That reminds me. Okay, so when we were looking, before we moved into that house, all four of us were looking for a place to stay. And off in Michigan there, somewhere near Adrian, there was this other house. And the person wouldn't come out to us to show us around the house. They just left the door unlocked. And it was on this huge acre of land. It had off in the distance this big kind of like garage, and it had some like farming equipment and whatnot in it. But it was off this little house, and it had a bunch of tiny rooms, like itty bitty rooms. And the feeling in that house was horrifying. Okay, it had this like gnarled tree outside. I didn't even want to be in the house. I looked at my husband, who wasn't my husband at the time, and I said, you know what? I am not going to live in this house. I absolutely refuse. That place is freaking haunted with some evil shit, and I am not going to live there. And I'm not saying every spirit is evil, because that's most certainly not the case. There is an entire range of beautiful angels and spirit guides, guardian angels, ancestors, animal guides. Okay, and then you have your really dark spectrum of ghosts. And there was some dark shit that was on that property as well too. Fast forward years later, my husband got into a band, and they would practice in this house that was owned by the University of Tiffin. So it was in Tiffin, Ohio. And so they would go to that house and they would practice, and I would tag along every once in a while. And they would practice off in what would have been like the living room area. And then there was this like you would pull it, almost like kind of like a curtain, but it was like a door. I'm not describing this very well, but I'm sure I'm like creating like an image for you. Okay, and on the other side, in like the hallway area, there was a small door that I think probably would have led down to a basement, and I could feel energy coming from there. And then you would go upstairs, and upstairs is where the bathroom was. And in the bathroom, there was this little wall where like you could store stuff behind the wall. And I felt the energy of a child back there. Almost like they kind of been like peeking like what are you doing over there? And I would try my best to ignore it. Like, it didn't mess with me or anything, but I could absolutely feel this child's energy in there. So I think a child had probably died in that home, unfortunately. More recent times, um, my mom, my granny, and my mother-in-law all passed away within 4 months of each other in 2017. And it was the night after my mom had passed away in September. I was upset. I was laying in bed crying and trying to go to sleep. And my dresser is right by the bed. And my husband had his tablet in there. And it was around, I'd say, probably midnight or something like that. I had started to hear Guns N' Roses' Sweet Child of Mine playing on that tablet, and it startled me because it was completely quiet in that room. Nothing else was going on in there except for just, me being upset trying to go to sleep. And I had opened the drawer, and I went out to my husband and I said, "Did you have your tablet on because this is playing?" And he said, "No, I haven't messed with that tablet in days." And there was absolutely no reason for that song to be on. And that was the song that my mom used to dedicate to me and my sister was, Sweet Child of Mine. So that was a confirmation to me that my mom was coming and she was visiting me and telling me that everything was okay and that she was with me, which was an absolutely beautiful experience. And another one was, I used to go and clean for this wonderful man named Richard. He lived in this Lutheran home complex. My granny lived there. He lived there. My aunt currently lives there right now, too. And I would go over there and I would clean Richard's apartment and I would clean my Aunt Dorothy's apartment. Well, one time he was off, he was going to visit his children who lived in New York and stuff. They were in town and they were all out visiting each other. And he had a dog, but he had taken the dog with him. And as I was vacuuming, I saw very distinctly a white ghost of a dog running across the floor. And I was like, holy crap, because I had never seen any activity in that apartment before. But I had absolutely seen like this small, like little dog, one of those itty bitty, like, I don't even know the breed. It's just one of those little itty bitty, like close to the floor dogs just running across. And I never asked him if he had any activity, experienced any activity in there because, he was a very religious and churchy type of person, so I didn't think that he would accept me asking such a question. But I found that to be very interesting, especially in that type of community. It wasn't scary or anything like that, but just more along the lines of interesting. And of course, in my own home that I live in here right now, I've experienced a bunch of activity. Like I said, when I do my tarot readings, when I'm sitting there meditating, speaking with my guides and stuff, I hear the tap, tap, taps in the ceilings. I hear the taps in the wall. And then when I meditate, there's this mirror that it was over at my mother-in-law's old house. And she kept it over like in her, the back in her, it's kind of like a sunroom that they built onto the house. They kept a mirror back there. And when I meditate, I could hear like what sounds like running along in my walls. And mind you, I'm on the third freaking floor. There is no other floors above me. So it's like almost like I hear the boom, 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 boom. Like someone's like running in the ceiling or in the wall beside me at all hours of the night. And also, I hear vibrating in the mirror. It's just. So I had taken some, sacred holy oil from my sister and I had, put dots around in it, went around it, and I even, like even though I'm not a religious person, I had drawn a cross in the middle of it. And for several nights I didn't hear anything coming from that. But recently I have been hearing that once again when I'm meditating. The pounding, like the running in the ceiling and the wall and the vibrating of that mirror. So there's always activity going on around me. And if you pay close attention and you pause my videos and you go frame by frame in them, you can absolutely see activity around me all the time. So see, do you hear that? That click, 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 click. That's what I'm talking about. Okay. That's like my confirmation of spirit right there. So I would love to hear your spirit stories. What have you experienced? What have you seen? Do you see people walking out of the corner of your eye? Do you see beams of light? Do you see orbs? Do you see little specks and then when you look over they're gone? Because I see that kind of stuff all of the time and I would love to hear it. This went on a lot longer than I thought it would. I thought it would be done in, like 10 minutes or less, but we're approaching 20 minutes here. Um, but yeah, tell me all about your spirit stories that you've experienced at your places or while you've been out at restaurants or friends' houses or in wooded areas. Anything. I would absolutely love to hear it. I will talk to you later. Love you all. Thanks for listening. Bye.